The morning sun stretched long shadows across the quiet cul-de-sac, painting everything in soft gold. Marcus stepped out onto his porch, coffee mug in hand, savoring the rare stillness of the day. But the peace shattered the moment his eyes landed on it. There, in the center of his driveway, sat a gleaming white SUV. It wasn't just any SUV. Everyone in Oak Ridge Estates knew that car. It belonged to Karen, the HOA board member who had spent years lording over the neighborhood, like a self-crowned queen. Her SUV wasn't parked carelessly or by accident. No, its angle screamed arrogance, positioned like a flag planted in conquered territory. Marcus's jaw tightened. It wasn't the first time. The first time he'd given her the benefit of the doubt. Walking over politely, knocking on her door. She had opened it with her trademark smirk, the kind of smile that always seemed carved from disdain. "It's just a driveway," she'd said, brushing him off as if he were a child whining about toys. "What's the big deal? You've got plenty of room." Plenty of room! As if ownership meant nothing. As if his property existed for her convenience. He had let it slide, though every muscle in his body screamed at the insult. He told himself it was a one-time thing, that patience would be easier than conflict. But patience only works with the respectful. Karen was not respectful. Her SUV returned again and again, like an unwanted guest that refused to leave. Each time, the trespass was deliberate, her smirk wider, her defiance sharper. This morning was different. Marcus stared at the SUV, then turned slowly back into his house. He set his mug on the counter and pulled out his phone. The number was one he had saved days ago, the local towing company. He had done his research, memorized the ordinances, prepared himself for this exact moment. When the dispatcher answered, Marcus's voice was steady. "Unauthorized vehicle. My property. Come get it." 30 minutes later, the rumble of the tow truck echoed down the street. Neighbors peeked from windows, blinds fluttering as if the entire cul-de-sac held its breath. The driver gave Marcus a knowing nod before looping, heavy chains around the SUV's frame. Metal groaned, hydraulics hissed, and slowly, Karen's prized possession lifted off his driveway. By the time Karen stormed out, shrieking at the sight, it was too late. The SUV dangled like a trophy in the morning light, her face frozen between rage and disbelief. Marcus didn't argue, didn't shout. He simply raised his coffee in a silent toast as the tow truck carried her arrogance away. The message was clear. This driveway was his, and patience had its limits. Karen's scream cut through the neighborhood like a blade. Doors opened, heads turned, neighbors stepping onto porches as she paced the street. Phone pressed to her ear, voice high-pitched and venomous. "This is harassment," she barked. "I'll sue. I'll have him fined into the ground. Nobody treats me this way." Marcus stood calmly at his fence, arms folded, his face unreadable. He didn't need to answer. Every neighbor already knew who had made the call. Karen's finger shot toward him like a dagger. "You!" she roared. "You had no right to tow my car. That's HOA business. You'll regret this." Her words spilled out like fire, but Marcus didn't flinch. He stepped forward, voice calm, even measured. "Karen, it's simple. This is my property, my driveway. Not the HOA's, not yours, mine. You parked here without permission. That's trespassing, and the law is on my side." The words struck harder than shouting ever could. Neighbors shifted, whispering among themselves. They had all lived under Karen's thumb, her endless rules and fines, her threats dressed up as community order. But now, under the clear light of morning, she wasn't a queen. She was a bully caught in the act. Her face reddened, voice cracking. "The board will punish you for this. I'll see to it." That night, she stormed into the clubhouse, demanding the HOA board act. Her hands shook as she waved papers, her voice echoing off the walls. "If we let him defy us, no one will respect the HOA. He has to pay. He has to be stopped." But her allies shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "It's his driveway, Karen," one finally whispered. "He's within his rights." Her glare could have scorched stone. "Don't you get it? If we don't put him in his place, the whole neighborhood will collapse into chaos." Yet the fear in her voice betrayed something else. She wasn't worried about chaos. She was worried about losing control. And the very next morning, as Marcus stepped out of his house, there it was again, the white SUV. This time parked even deeper in his driveway, as though daring him to act. A silent challenge. Marcus sighed, pulling out his phone. If the first tow had been a warning, the second would be the lesson. The dawn air was cool, the street still wrapped in silence when Marcus stepped onto his porch. He didn't even glance at the white SUV gleaming arrogantly in his driveway. It was already expected. Inevitable, a declaration of war. He breathed in slowly, then pulled out his phone. The towing company answered on the first ring. Same car? The dispatcher asked, half laughing. Marcus's lips curved just slightly. Same car. Same driveway. Same spot. This time, Marcus didn't retreat to the quiet of his porch with a mug of coffee. He waited at the curb, arms folded, gaze steady as the growl of the tow truck echoed down the cul-de-sac. Curtains twitched. Neighbors had been waiting for this. Word of the first tow had spread like wildfire, and now the promise of a sequel drew silent spectators. The driver stepped out, gave Marcus a nod, and got to work. Chains rattled, metal clanged. The SUV's tires lifted from the concrete, dangling like prey caught in a hunter's snare. That was when Karen burst out of her front door, hair tangled, robe flapping like a flag of desperation. "Stop! You can't do this!" she shrieked, running barefoot toward the truck. The driver barely looked up. "Private property, ma'am. You know the drill. You want it back? Call the impound." Karen's face twisted. "That's my car. You can't take it. This is harassment." Laughter rippled from the houses. Phones lifted higher, neighbors recording her every word. For years, Karen's threats and fines had cowed them into silence. But now, with Marcus standing tall and her SUV dangling in midair, they saw her not as a ruler, but as a tantrum in human form. Marcus's voice cut through the air, calm but sharp enough to slice. "You said it yourself last week, Karen. Property lines matter. This is mine. Respect it." The truck rumbled forward, pulling her car out of the cul-de-sac as Karen's screams cracked into sobs. And then something remarkable happened. Applause. At first soft, then louder, neighbors clapping openly in the daylight. Karen froze, her humiliation total. She had not just lost her car, she had lost her crown. The emergency HOA meeting was packed. The tension in the clubhouse clung to the air like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Karen sat at the front, her stack of papers trembling with every slam of her hand against the table. Her voice, once smooth and commanding, now carried a shrill edge of desperation. "This man is undermining the HOA," she shouted, her eyes blazing. "He's dangerous. If we allow him to tow vehicles at will, what's next? Anarchy?" A few murmurs of agreement fluttered, but they were weak, uncertain. Most of the room had seen the videos. Karen screaming barefoot in the street as her SUV was hauled away. The image clung to their minds, impossible to erase. At the back of the room, Marcus rose. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Instead, he placed a folder on the table, sliding copies of city ordinances across the polished wood. Each page bore stamps, signatures, unshakable authority. "The law is clear," he said, steady and measured. "A homeowner has full rights to his property. An HOA cannot override that. Every tow I requested was legal, filed, and recorded. The city agrees." Karen snatched up one of the papers, scanning frantically for loopholes, but the words were iron. No amount of twisting could undo them. "You don't understand," she hissed, her voice cracking. "If people think they can just defy us, this neighborhood will fall apart. I've kept order here for years." "No," a voice interrupted from the crowd. A neighbor stood, his face firm. "You've kept us afraid. There's a difference." Murmurs surged into a wave. Others stood, nodding, clapping, speaking out after years of silence. "He's right. It's his driveway." She went too far. Karen's face blanched as the room turned. The board members, once her loyal allies, now avoided her gaze. Power was slipping through her fingers, replaced by the undeniable weight of truth. Marcus gathered his folder, nodded once, and turned toward the door. He didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The silence left in his wake said everything. Her reign was over. The days that followed were quiet, eerily quiet. Karen's SUV never touched Marcus's driveway again. Her once booming voice at HOA meetings faltered, reduced to bitter mutters and half-hearted threats. Neighbors who once cowered beneath her rules now walked taller, emboldened by the sight of her defeat. Marcus never bragged. He didn't need to. His victory wasn't in the humiliation he delivered, but in the peace that followed. He mowed his lawn, sipped his coffee, and waved to the neighbors who, for the first time, waved back with genuine respect. Karen, meanwhile, had become a ghost of her former self. She still strutted, still tried to cling to shreds of authority, but every whisper behind, her back reminded her of the truth. She was no longer feared. She was pitied. Twice towed, twice exposed, her crown lay broken. One evening, a young couple stopped Marcus as he returned from his mailbox. "Thank you," they said softly, "for standing up to her." "None of us could." Marcus smiled faintly, offering only a nod. He hadn't done it for applause, he had done it because dignity demanded no less. As summer rolled in, the cul-de-sac felt different. Children played louder, neighbors gathered more freely, the air no longer thick with invisible chains. Karen still glared from across her lawn, but her stares carried no weight anymore. She was a storm that had passed, leaving behind only damp earth and a brighter sky. And Marcus? He remained the same quiet man with steady eyes, but now when he walked his street, he carried something new, a respect earned not through force, but through the calm, unshakable defense of his rights. The driveway was clear. The neighborhood was freer. And the lesson lingered like an echo. True strength is not noise, nor dominance. It is the quiet refusal to bow.